Давайте, пока мы ждем.
While we're waiting for everybody to join us, please answer the question. I myself and Irene, has anybody watched the movie? Me, I haven't watched it. Let's watch it instead of this panel discussion because it's such a great movie with Jim Carrey. Please put it on. I haven't watched it, but the main character, Jim Carrey, played by Jim Carrey, he had schizophrenia. And for a long time, I just have kept wondering why the session had the name me, myself, and so forth. Because nowadays, people are, while being alive in this physical world, at the same time, they are coexisting in this digital environment, digital space. Let's take a vote if we should wait for the people who are getting back from lunch. Speakers, are you ready? Should we vote for or against? Let's begin. As a matter of fact, you came to a session about each and every one of you. It's dedicated to the most important thing in the person that's a consumer of digital and financial services. And our speakers will be sharing at this session how to be a consumer of the next generation and how they change and transform their business models in view of this reality. And you will also learn how to attract and to keep your consumer. There's an opinion that nobody reads newspapers anymore, but recently one of the Finopolis participants told me that after my article in Vedomosti about his project, well, it failed. My name is Anna Eremina. I write about banks, about payments and services, and I'll be moderating the discussion, and it will be my pleasure to introduce the participants. These are bright stars and representatives of companies both from financial and non-financial sectors. And we have here with us Artem Yamanov, Senior Vice President, Business Development Director of Tinkoff Bank. Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Tuch, head of the retail business, member of the executive board of Alfa-Bank. Anna Kuznetsova, member of the executive board and managing director of Securities Markets Moscow Exchange. Yuri Ivanov, director for financial technology and payment services, Vkontakte. And we also have another Anna, who is a representative of a British FinTech startup, and that startup is represented by Vyacheslav Akulov, Anna Money. And let's begin with the the biggest bank in our country. Michael, please tell us, what's the share of your income for the Y and Z generations, and how their demands influence your philosophy and the logic of your services delivery? Well, in fact, the audience of Y and Z generations already has a big influence as far as the income and the share of the clients, and over half of our clients are from those generations, and of course that influences our philosophy. If we think about the fact whether people want to go to a bank, people want to live, and they would like to live a better life and more comfortable life. And the banking philosophy should be about the speed and comfort, and about quality, especially for Y and Z generations audience, because the audience is prepared to do things on their own, and that's why they would like to have a seamless experience in terms of bank services as well. And they shouldn't be too much concentrating on how it works. but we should not imitate Uber services to the full, but we should think about how crediting bank loans services transformed. And we shouldn't talk too much about it, but we shouldn't doubt about how important it will be. And also another important thing is for such generations, we need to become important to them. About a year ago, we launched a product for travelers, and we didn't make it in having the bank's comfort in mind, but our clients' comfort. It's the same for the families' accounts, to unify and consolidate tariffs so that they wouldn't be too concentrated on or too mindful of how mechanically it works to run transactions and between themselves. So banking, at the same time, we have developed a physical and digital model, because banks should be there physically and personal, so that people could come and talk to a person in a bank, so that at the same time it would be done quickly in the presence of an expert who will come along and assist. So this should be done step by step towards digital. Michael, I have a question. You said that you have created a product for travelers where you did something that wasn't only comfortable for you, but mostly aiming at the comfort of the clients. What did you mean? If we talk about the product itself, we looked at it from the point of view of what's the most important thing for the traveler. The more they use the card, the more they will accumulate points for their travels. We offer 5% of cash back for each purchase, and we're looking at what the experience of the client, what lifetime value is. So we try and do the best for the client so that they could receive the best part of it. We create services and that they could use their points to pay for the meals at restaurants and pay for air tickets and so forth. So looking at the lifestyle, we are thinking about how our client remains relevant to match the product to the wallet capacity, wallet opportunities. Michael shared with us about, he mentioned a term that's become a buzzword for each one of you. It's a lifestyle banking. Artem, Tinkoff are the founders, Michael, and working. Well, Alpha is still trending. It's not too bad. Artem, I have a question for you. What's the target audience for lifestyle banking from your point of view? How do you choose the areas of that lifestyle, and where would you recommend not to go? I'd like to first get an argument with Michael a little bit, not about the fact that Alpha is still trending, but about a different thing. He touched upon a different important thing. He said that banks should go invisible, but the threat to the banks is that they will go invisible because services will move the banks physically into the back office, and there will be new stockholders and players in the market, such as Apple Play and so forth. And back offices are very small spaces, and the margins are very difficult to achieve in small and stuffy offices. To carry along a very boring existence And that's what neither I nor Michael are used to. Now, going back to the lifestyle banking, we're working on it, and Michael has said it right that for us as a fast-paced, growing banking service, being visible is very important, and it leads to interaction with your clients because they like how their metallic credit or debit card looks, and that helps the bank to grow based on the satisfaction of the consumer, thus attracting new clients. The audience of the Tinkoff Bank, our primary audience was from among those people who didn't want to go to a bank office. Those were more advanced people who were ready, prepared to deposit money on a bank account onto a bank which didn't have any affiliates or offices. Of course, the majority of that audience is the youth. It's 20 to 32 years of age, and our share is quite large, and we continue to grow thanks to that core audience. And people who are older than 35 or 40 years of age, they still need something that Michael mentioned. They still deem it important to go to a physical office and talk to a physical person. But those who are older than 25, they don't care about that. They can just still be anywhere and go online, and they wouldn't go to a bank physically. Instead, they just would spend time with their friends and chatting with them online. Artem, you mentioned the fear of the banks going invisible and banks going into the back office. But still, what do you think about banks being capable of an entry point, providing services? Meanwhile, services, including financial services, can be delivered online. So, do you still view the banks being the physical banks with their physical services and presence still viable within this online digital system? There are some extreme cases. For example, when in China, the banks lost their majority of their share in the interface, and any company can take money from the bank for the customer, and it's very easy because internet companies they actually took the larger share of the market, and the Chinese government actually accommodated this, and it all depends on the flexibility, on the preparedness of banks to change. And the ecosystem of services should be wider, because all services in the world are migrating, following the Chinese example. But in China, there were certain prerequisites and certain pre-existing conditions that accommodated the process. But there are some super applications that 4 or 5 of them will cover the majority of people's needs and demands. Yuri? Well, Tinkoff and Alfa-Bank, in spite of the fact that there are risks that they will move to the back office and the risk is growing higher, and at the same time, you chose a different route. You created a VK Pay system that allows to pay for services and goods without exiting that social platform. But before asking my question, I'd like to ask the audience, who knows that there is a payment system within the VK? Well, you came prepared. Who has ever used that service in VK? Thank you. Yuri? How are you going to teach your users to obtain financial services through a non-financial institution? What kind of difficulties do you foresee? Thank you. I'd like to begin by saying that I liked a phrase that Artem said. I liked everything he said, but I'd like to emphasize just one phrase of his own. He said that technological companies can put the banks into the back office. So we are a tech company that actually put a bank or banks into the back office. And another thing that I noticed, and Michael mentioned as well, that going to a bank office, walking into an office, we actually walked further. I, as a user, I don't want even to use a bank mobile application because those applications bear only utilitarian function, and I don't need that. If I'm chatting with you online, and if we're raising money to pay for a party for a friend's birthday party. And so I'm not asking anybody for money, for your bank account or your card number, and there will be no banking fee involved. So I am here to solve this problem, not only in terms of money transfers, but also in terms of social platform commerce. We have over 97 million users on a monthly basis, and 70 million of them are based in Russia. And there's always going on among them. There are tens of thousands of communities, and small businesses use those communities and platforms and to run their businesses, just following and monitoring demands and interests of their audience. And through advertising, they offer to buy a service or goods, and the service can be paid for using that social platform for purchases of promotional codes or tickets. And here, support can be also provided using that social platform. So it's a social cycle, social platform cycle, and our concept is about the fact that you don't necessarily need a physical visit to a bank or going to a different application to achieve that. For us, it's the main model of making money. It's a business monetization. It's advertisement model. So if a user left for another platform, we have lost some of usage time, and that user saw less of our advertisement, and less of our product was sold. We, of course, need to think about business and money and success. But firstly, we need to think about consumers and clients and their good. And their good is about the fact that we are there on demand. We offer them the financial services that oftentimes they need for now. And Artem mentioned it about banks moving into non-financial services. At the same time, we're not a bank that moved into a financial services area.
You are talking about monetization and the model based on advertisement, but how can we monetize such financial services? As far as I know, most of your financial services are free for the users. It looks like a joke about this business bunny who talks 10 of them 1 ruble each. I'm going to sell them at 10 kopecks a piece. I never calculated the profit, but the turnover is huge. I have to go back to the second part of your previous question, which I failed to answer. The main difficulties that we face. And here there are 3 points. I told you about the convenience. When we proceed from the needs of the user, they need 3 main things. Number 1, they need convenience or comfort. That's we tackle that by being present with our financial service where and when the user needs that, And the second point is about security, and here we do a lot of work related with information, because the account may be hacked, but the money will not be stolen because there are additional identification, authorization factors. You have to put in PIN code and SMS code, so people trust banks more than your such services. Well, this may be a standard approach, standard view that a bank is reliable, because we have a similar interface which is in our back office. We are sometimes even more reliable considering the cutting-edge financial solutions. And the third point is about the financial component and the commission, the fee. It could be resolved in a number of ways. You can make money by charging for transactions, but there's not enough margin there or profit. It's not our main model. We prefer to focus on advertisement, and sometimes you can get we can only break even, or we can make a little bit of profit, but there are other advantages. They can look at additional advertisements if they stay in our ecosystem without leaving it. And of course, I have to say a few words about our colleagues from MasterCard, who have their own interests in this market. We've been partners with them for 3 years. They've been partners of our WikiPay and money remittances, and we together teach the users to use such technologies. There are many interesting ideas expressed by Yuri. Which model is better? Who is front office, who is not? I think it's about something else. It's about partnership. I don't think that any of the models could be more successful than the other. And I think the future is in how the companies will be able to move their ego to the back office and become partners and consider the interests of the clients, and using pros and of both systems. When you are talking about 10 million rubles, you want to use something similar to a bank and to see this kind of money for real, and you need that kind of seamless connection. If someone wants to invest or significant amounts, they want to do it where it's comfortable. 10 million rubles are going to be hard to get for real. You will have to pre-order it in advance. Artem, will you add anything to this discussion? I think Yuri was right in many of the things that he said. On the one hand, the VK model is good, but it's not the only platform that can boast of social interactions. Months ago, we launched this investor social network called Pulse. Our daily audience coverage almost doubled among the investors. They don't want to discuss investments in VK. They use our application, and they're quite happy about that, because it's not with everyone, but only with those who are interested. And it's not that simple. VK is not the only platform for Russia and the world. I wasn't saying that we only have VK. Odnoklassniki is also part of our group. You can set up a chat in VK with just a few people. We have our own little chat called Your Mother's Investors, and we exchange experience. We follow the securities and share the news and interesting ideas. All right, let's look at the consumers from a different perspective. Some of us spend money in a very rational way. First, they have a discussion on chats, and they choose the best offer, and others are impulsive. And the financial marketplace established by central bank and the Moscow Exchange is designed for such consumers, for the rational consumers. It's hard to make money with rational consumers. How will the launch of marketplace impact the income of those who sell their financial services through that platform? That's a great question. Good afternoon. The financial marketplace is about saving and investing rather than spending, and we all act rationally, but not 100%. At any given amount of time, we're trying to make a rational choice, depending on how much time we're going to spend on that choice and how much it will take to implement it. Why are we going to launch this project? There are three reasons. Reason number one, in the financial markets, among banks, brokers, and exchanges, the competition gets tougher every year. There are two reasons. Big tech, those companies that were not part of the financial market, begin to offer some financial services, and in 5 or 10 years, we will see the result of that competition. And reason number three is that almost all services move online. Online trade, online attraction, and these three factors are going to change the financial industry in the next 5 to 10 years. May I ask you, why do you think that the marketplace is something for the government? In England, there is Money Supermarket, 3 other financial supermarkets that are set up by private entrepreneurs. They are traded at the stock exchange. They are much more efficient than the government system. Why does the Russian government want to be involved in everything? In the US, they have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They loan this money to the bank and they use it for the mortgage. Why do you have such ambitions? Why you want to build a marketplace rather than environment? Bank Bazaar with Amazon in India, and you want to be involved in that. You think you will do it better than the market? Why do you think that? I cannot speak for the government. I can speak about the public company with the free float of 56% in the top 3 in Russia. Is it connected with the government? I represent a public company with a huge free float of Russian and international investors. Let's get back to the marketplace and proceed along those lines. What we are going to do and why we think it's going to work in our case. We want the client to be able to choose different financial products in a convenient and fast way, not just traditional ones in the niche where we existed. On the other hand, they would be able to make deals, a deposit transaction, or buying some securities for the population, and you don't have to be connected with a specific bank. Of course, many banks have excellent applications and programs, but to get that set of services, you need to become a client of that bank. Why we think that it's going to work? The Moscow Exchange is a unique institution in that sense. It's at an equal distance from other financial institutions, and we always have our partners, banks and brokers. I can give you 2 examples from our current life. They're quite convincing. For example, our bank number 2 in our country can issue one-day bonds. In 24 hours, it can emit a security and then close it. It's done without the using of the Moscow Stock Exchange and Central Depository with a electronic signature alone. That's an excellent example of how you can use the technologies on the interbank market. Bank number 1 can issue investment bonds, structural bonds, to protect the capital, and using our infrastructure for their clients because it's ready to service such a flow. For example, this week and last week we registered 19 such issuances, and not all of them have been placed yet, but we are able for each one of our clients to select a technology that can do that. I hope that our deposit marketplace will be interesting to our clients and the clients of our banks, private individuals, because on the one hand, it's going to give them a chance to compare products, and it replaces the aggregator for the client. You sometimes depositors you can use electronic platform to compare them, but you still have to go to the bank physically. But in our case, we are able to make an addition to the banking products with this step, and then we'll add deposits as a service for our private clients. Thank you. And Artem, to follow up on your idea, you asked me why does the government want to play this role of a marketplace. If I read the law correctly, if I listened to the central bank correctly, they say we are going to build an infrastructure, we're going to have the exchange as a platform, and then we'll have a financial sort of displays, and such displays, there can be many such displays. Why would central bank need its window display, its display like that? I'm not sure if there are many such displays. Why would they need their own? It's a similar situation with the payments. It follows a certain pattern. All right. I also have a question to Artem and Michael. Do you plan to place your financial products on that marketplace that we were discussing right now? We have not considered that. We place our products at commercial marketplaces. We have not thought about the government project like that. It depends on the volume and the technical costs of integration. If the technical costs are not that high, why not? Artem, you have a new challenge. Communication within the bank needs to be improved. Your team is an active part of the working group, and we participate in all working groups. It does not mean that we are in all sorts of working groups. We work with QR codes, and so it doesn't mean that we will necessarily have some real business there. The same can be said about payments. We are all integrated in all these different projects with different degrees of success. We are happy with this process. When the government begins to get involved in the commercial activities, it's not always good for the client, but as a commercial organization, we always look at how it can be commercially viable, and that's where we work. I hope our group is a part of that work as well. Not as active as Tinkoff, but we are more commercially oriented in a sense. Vyacheslav, before I ask you a number of smart questions, tell me, where did you get the name of your startup? It's called Anna, and all Annas are interested in where did you get that? There was this Anna Bollé in Great Britain. Married to Henry VIII, and he wanted to marry her, and the Pope prevented him from doing that. The Pope prevented him from doing that, and that's why Henry VIII decided to invent his own religion, and that's why the Brits do respect Anna, but it's not why we called our project like that.
And our co-founders were rebranding our office, and they referred to the British agency, and they came up with that title. So, well, in Russia we have male-sounding combinations, and Anna Bollé doesn't have anything to do with that. Then here comes a smart question. The work of your service is based on the financial assistant to businesses, which helps entrepreneurs and individual businesses to run payment services and pay for the utilities and so forth. How does your service work? Does it work by demand, and then operators process those applications by hand, and then at a certain moment that manual labor is no longer needed, and operations and transactions are automated? From your experience, what kind of transactions will still be manual and not be automated? Well, yes. About our service, as an operational basis for our activity, it's we laid interaction with a physical person, and Tinkoff Bank didn't use physical bank offices to build their network, and now Tinkoff has over 20,000 representatives working through online chats. But we worked on the creation of a system that didn't need any personnel, at the same time maintaining the personal assistant level. On the other hand, about those things that cannot be automated, I will not tell you about the personality and character. There are couple of things that cannot be automated. There are things that are not unnecessary to the client, and the cost of an operator is 2,500 pounds per month, and we only pay 25,000 rubles, and there is nobody in the market willing to work for less money. Well, in Moscow, it's give or take, a good operator would cost about 200,000 rubles a month. But like gas stations, there are automated, many of them. But in India, they don't use special closing automated devices on doors, because it's cheaper to hire a person to do that, and so doors will remain unautomated for a long time, because the cheap labor force is a definitive factor. So Mr. Trump does the right thing in returning the business to the homeland, because there is a stimulation behind that. Secondly, where there is a probability of a human error, there should be automation. We know that civil aviation pilots nowadays handle only the minority of operations while piloting a plane. And of course, many things are, I'm just simplifying it, but the majority of processes are automated, because there the risk is highest for a human error. Well, in the business and financial sector, those things can be automated easier. How many open accounts does your service have, and what's the number of staff? Well, we are a startup, and we have launched last year in September, and as for today, we have only 20 people working in customer support. It is impossible to state whether it's small or a big number, but nonetheless, we at least found out that there was a minimum of 14 customer support personnel to cover the minimal needs. But the thing is that initially we involved two principles while hiring the staff for customer support. First, we don't automate the interaction of the client with the system. We assist the agent in their communication with the client. So the agent and personal human communication is the first an initial step in creating any service, and then you should make their routine work automated and leaving the non-routine and non-standard work to the manual labor. The clients don't generate the charge a load on the customer support. The bugs in our product and the unfinished features of our product, they create an extra load. And while developing those services, you actually work for the automation of the overall process. That's it from me, from my part. Artem, when robots will replace your running boys in the service, well, the scales are different. The running service boys will never be replaced. But you should probably address that question to the chief authorities in your bank. From the point of view of where this startup will lead to, but we have 50% of our chat information being dealt with automatically. Well, it takes at least 15 personnel people on staff to provide for 24/7 customer support. So there is a Tuch service, Boris and Eduard. We know those people, and they have not been able to make a revolution happen. But nonetheless, they created a precedent which everybody aimed to repeat in their experience. So we wish everybody success. Vyacheslav shared with us about the financial assistant for businesses. At the same time, for each and every one of you, there is an assistant, a voice-operated assistant on your phones. And there's a question, who uses those voice-activated assistants on your phones? Yes, to set an alarm. I hope to see more hands in the air. And let's ask our speakers to the panel members to answer Blitz questions why those voice-assisted assistants are not very popular. Well, it depends on who to consider humans. Well, as a matter of fact, children, they use Alisa in Russia. They use voice assistants and other mobile devices for voice assistance services, and they don't have any barriers like us. So the voice assistant interface hasn't come to its maximum realization yet. I think it's just a matter of time. Digibank in India, for example, they have 2 million clients, only 12 operators, because everybody was using their voice assistants. And just improving that service would actually help a lot in the future. According to the poll taken in the 2019, only 34% of people, of responders, actually use voice assistants. I'll join Artem's comment, as this service is becoming more popular among kids. And my son, for example, when he needs additional information on any subject from school program, he will use Siri for that information search. And unlike me, who's using a search bar in the internet browser. But there are certain bugs that are coming as a package deal with the voice assistants, because sometimes it can be poorly heard and poorly recognized. Let's go back to the FinTech discussion. So it's not only about the voice assistants. Let me join Artem's comments, and in a few years from now there will be a technological boom, and in order to do anything using Siri nowadays, you need to create a shortcut. In order to teach Alisa to run a bank transfer, you should install an additional software. So for now, in the majority of cases of users of voice assistant services, Alisa is still good enough for raising the volume or turning on a playlist. Lisa, Siri, or any other voice assistants are not ready yet to send 1,000 ruble to Masha, for example. We ran a study recently, and out of 5.5 million entrepreneurs in Britain, 3 million use light commercial vehicles in their work. And for drivers, a pattern of using voice assistants is very common. So they insert an address of destination by voice. And we have a very large and a big project, joint project with Ford, and working with them, we are running a pilot project, and we'll look at how market would react. In limited cases, when something cannot be described, for example, or a phone cannot be used normally or successfully, yes, kids are very apt to new features, and because they are too lazy to type, unlike me. Then another question for a blitz discussion. What financial assistant does a consumer need? What kind of tasks is that assistant supposed to solve? I don't know, but obviously the world is moving towards some sort of a segregation, distinction. Some people will need a voice assistant. There will be something necessary to run business or to identify where the money is. A financial assistant will be able to transfer the money from the bank account into the bonds and so forth. So the voice assistant, a financial assistant at the first stage is to optimize your money usage. And the next stage would be to monitor your unnecessary expenditures and to give advices on how to run your calculations or bookkeeping more effectively, like buying cigarettes, not buying cigarettes. Yes, I think like in the States, the assistant can be used to improve your credit story, credit background for the future, or to apply for a credit card, or assign some mundane or regular tasks, banking tasks, to the assistant. So that is the trend, and those are not like rocket science things. I think that our clients still need an expert, because you understand that you can ask a secretary to book a restaurant in New York, and if you don't know a thing about restaurants in New York, it would be uncomfortable because it may look very cozy on a photograph. We have run into different situations while booking online here, and a physical person, unlike a machine, an expert that is aware of the area of his knowledge or their knowledge, that expert knowledge is still necessary to be able to understand what kind of doubts or thoughts or demands the client might have, in order to actually come up with a very high quality offer instead of doing something unnecessary. I would agree with Michael and Artem. I don't believe that an assistant can be a universal expert in all areas of life. from high tech to finances. I believe in a financial specialization, and I am most persuaded that such financial assistance is necessary. And for households, for example, that's a diversification, because we need planning to take place for purchases, for refinancing your loans and so forth. But in a long-term perspective, a strategy, systems can come up with viable suggestions. For example, like information that a certain bank is offering a better rate, and thus an assistant can actually suggest or advise a client to refinance from one bank to another.
Let me ask one more thing. Anna, you're talking about bank number 1, bank number 2. I think I understood what you were talking about, but now you mentioned bank number 8. I don't know. I was just... are you not allowed to say Sberbank, VTB, or whatever? We are probably bank number 5. I did mention MasterCard and didn't hesitate to do that. To follow up on my colleagues' ideas, how can you combine it in one helper or assistant? I'm going to use Artem's phrase. You can put the financial assistant into the back office. You need a financial consultation about the tax return, or you may help in selecting or selling a car, and then you need a travel assistant, and then you might need a legal advice, and then you need a medical advice. And it would be good if in your phone book you have a number of specialized assistants in every sphere of life where you might need help from the specialist, or have one entry point like a concierge service, which will be attracting experts to deal with your issue. It might work like that, it might not, but it's not about the premium concierge service like when you have your own personal manager with premium banking products. I'm talking about mass market. And it may stay at the level of specific experts that you know, and at the level of services that offer such expertise. For example, there are companies that check your vehicle before you're ready to buy it. Moving on to this idea of a financial assistant. The first priority is to increase the financial awareness of the population. Among our population, there's a huge level of illiteracy, and they don't know they don't know the difference between a bond and a share, or stocks, equities, bonds. They don't know any of that, and there are very few people who are aware of those details. And at least we need to help people not to losing their money or investing them into cashberry. Am I allowed to say that? So I respect Tinkoff publications, and when they're trying to educate hundreds of thousands of people, speaking in clear language when they discuss rather complicated topics. We need to raise the level of financial awareness of the population and help the people get an understanding of what they need. As a company that actually develops the financial assistant, what do we mean by the financial assistant? Sometimes people imagine some kind of anthropomorphic Isaac Asimov style robot that is going to talk, but the notification about your transactions are already part of the financial assistant. You can go to the banki.ru website. That's another financial assistant. Robots, automation, financial assistants, they are all with us. We imagine some kind of universal interface, but it's just an interface. It can look very different, but the help is already there. It's there, it's just not anthropomorphic. Before we move on to the final question, let me read a question from the audience. Based on the dialogue, the market in Russia is at the stage when an banking requirement is a must. Do banks take any steps? The question is to Michael and Artem. What kind of steps do you actually take? Open banking is the responsibility of the central bank. Mike and I, we all take some steps, and there are probably working groups, and we also have a working group, I think. But would you like to take a voluntary step to upload your data into the network? Mr. Graf said that they wanted to join faster payment system. It doesn't work. They are trying, they're ready to pay fines, and that's what we also want. As member of that working group, and to help these three guys who failed to respond to that question. This is under FinTech Association. There are many banks in that working group. They already have a roadmap on different technological areas, and it is true, this is where we are going, and it's a matter of speed. It depends on us and the regulator. Our regulator is ahead of the rest of the planet. There's a roadmap that exists nowhere else in the world for open banking. It's about everything: insurance, brokers, accounts, and anything but the keys from one's apartment, I guess, are in that open banking. I saw a hand raised. If you could use the application, please, to ask your question. Let me ask you another quick question. In 10 or 20 years, who is going to be your client? A human being or their digital twin or digital assistant? It depends on one's luck. Perhaps we wish it were a human being, but perhaps it's going to be a twin, an avatar, and perhaps there will be assistants of assistants working with some other assistants, robots talking to robots for the benefit of human beings, and whether we are going to be there or not, it's hard to say, especially looking 20 years into the future. Everything changes in business in 20 years. 20 years ago, half of those top companies never existed. There was no Facebook. Amazon was really small. But in 20 years, everything is going to change. All right. The social network number one will also change, most probably. Russia is a unique market in the world. It's the only one where the local player was not conquered by Facebook. It's a unique situation, well, with the exception of China, where Facebook is banned, and it's our birthday today. I have to skip our corporate party to be here. And to answer your question, it's really hard to distinguish or to tell between a human being or an avatar. Let's say I have 16 hours when I'm not asleep, and most of that time I spend online. And Mediascope in Vkontakte is the leader in terms of time spent online here in Russia. we're ahead of many platforms taken together. So we can say even now that digital avatars are our clients, and it's going to develop further, considering augmented reality, virtual reality technologies, and things like that. I'm going to believe that we will still have human beings as our clients. The human beings are going to be making those decisions, even if assisted by digital helpers. Once again, if we imagine servicing the client as an information flow between the bank and the client, imagine the kind of flow that exists between any systems. We are already We have already automated everything, and the human being is just a small part of this process that one can see. That's why I think people will be poor but live long, and they will not worry about any such services because the rest will be done by the machine. I don't want to sound boring, but I think that certain things will be automated, it will become more convenient. But I just started my career in banks 20 years ago, I heard that consumer loans will die out 10 or 20 years from now. It will be doing fine. It will be evolving. They were talking about how nobody needed branches or physical offices of banks, but now they are still doing fine. And I think the emotion that you can get as you wait in line in the physical branch, but human behavior is irrational. Consumption is irrational. It's based on emotions, and no avatar will be able to express those emotions. You can get excellent emotions as you're standing in line in a physical branch. You mean probably banks number 1 and 2, and number 3. All right, thank you all for being part of this debate and for this kind of interaction. I'm thankful to our professional and smart audience. I invite you to read our newspaper, Vedomosti. Please comment on our news, and see you again.